Ayahuasca is a brew made in South America by local shamans so as to bring about a trance for self-discovery, healing, contacting spirits, or exploring consciousness. The brew consists of two ingredients: Banisteriopsis kaapi, also called ayahuasca liana, and the chacruna shrub Psychotria viridis, a MAO inhibitor. There are many other entheogens used for religious purposes, and they form an integral part of shamanism. Entheogens are plants that contain psychoactive compounds, such as DMT and others, and that, when taken at appropriate doses, produce a consciousness-altering effect upon our psyche and perception. While there are methods to alter consciousness without plants, modern researchers agree that from a point of view of effectiveness, there is a large gap between those latter techniques on one hand and the use of entheogen drugs on the other. In fact, entheogens are several hundreds of % more effective than non-plant-based methods. Some researchers have seriously tackled the question why this is so, and one of the most persisting on this specific point was Terence Mckenna. In his book The Archaic Revival, Mckenna affirms that entheogenic plants contain the very essential genetic code, the basic information about the evolution of life on Earth, and that for this reason their ingestion, or at least the ingestion of the psychoactive compounds they contain, leads to an immediate opening of consciousness, which was something much broader and much more intelligent to experience than mere colorful visions. In fact, Mckenna's visionary and illuminating books would never have had such a powerful impact on the consciousness change of Western society if they only talked about some nice hallucinogenic visions. Anthropologists and shamanism researchers who try to understand the unique phenomenon of shamanism and reduce the entheogenic experience to a mere social game, a distraction, or a search for some kind of artificial nirvana are deeply misled. It is therefore not surprising that most anthropologists, and especially those of them who really do not understand shamanistic cultures, tend to employ expressions such as hallucinogenic, narcotic drugs, narcotics, or psychedelics. Apart from the fact that these plants are not narcotics, because a narcotic drug, such as for example opium, renders somnolent but does not alter consciousness, the important thing to know is that entheogens are not understood in shamanic cultures as leisure drugs to have a nice time seeing some visions, but really are considered as assets of the religious and numinous experience. That is why the only expression that comes close to the shamanic mindset is the term entheogens. Facilitators for getting in touch with the God within. And as such, they form part of the religious ritual and not of party time. This is generally little understood in most Western countries, where so-called drugs are usually associated with leisure, distraction, party time, and sex. Yet in native cultures, the very idea to, for example, relate an entheogenic voyage with sex would offend every shaman if told about it. It has been equally affirmed that entheogens, apart from their helping us to reach the inner mind, also dissolve nasty and somehow destructive habits such as alcoholism, and generally help in the process of social deconditioning. Entheogens help us to see behind the veil of normative behavior code in any given society, as they show us options of different behavior. What we can thus learn from these plants as a sort of social medicine is to recognize the pattern of normative behavior we are caught in and that obstructs our creativity and self-realization. People who are socially oppressed, racial, ethnic, religious, or sexual minorities may want to inquire into the possible dissolution of rigid behavior rules and oppressive normative standards in society. They may thus look for the ultimately most intelligent catalyzer that exists to see all the options reality offers and, as a result, might want to engage in a consciousness opening voyage. Another important observation regards mental health. It has often been wrongly stated that indigenous shamanic populations were psychotic or at least pre-psychotic. And it comes to mind that usually pedophiles in our society, once convicted and subjected to psychiatric expertise, are labeled in exactly the same way. When we remember the times of communism in Russia, or read books by Alexander Solzhenitsyn and others, we learn that under that totalitarian regime, the same murderous psychiatry with exactly that same vocabulary had been used to eliminate intellectuals who were treated as system enemies because they defended human rights and democratic values.